Waitress serves Patrick Mahomes, sees note on the check, and bursts into tears. We dream of reaching 1,000 followers by the end of February. Subscribe and be part of our dream too. Thank you. Emma Harper had worked at Charlie's Diner for nearly 5 years. Nestled in the heart of Kansas City, the small restaurant was known for its cozy booths, warm smiles, and the best coffee in town. Emma, juggling 2 jobs and caring for her young son, found solace in the predictable rhythm of the diner. Her shift began like any other, with the morning rush bringing a mix of regulars and newcomers. Despite the long hours and aching feet, she wore her trademark smile, determined to make it through another day. As the lunch hour approached, the diner's energy shifted. A murmur rippled through the room as a tall man entered, his presence magnetic. Dressed in casual attire and a baseball cap pulled low, he seemed familiar but unassuming. Emma didn't recognize him immediately, focused as she was on refilling coffee cups and delivering orders. When she approached his table with her notepad in hand, he looked up, offering a friendly smile. "What's the special today?" he asked. Emma rattled off the menu, her tone polite but rushed. She had no time to dwell on the feeling that she should know him. "I'll take the steak and eggs," he decided, his voice warm and approachable. She scribbled down the order and moved to the next table, unaware of the momentous turn her day was about to take. The diner buzzed with chatter and the clinking of plates, but Emma couldn't shake the strange vibe surrounding the man. Other patrons whispered and pointed discreetly, their eyes fixed on his corner. Only then did it hit her. Patrick Mahomes? She glanced back, now fully realizing she was serving Kansas City's biggest sports star. Her heart raced, though she kept her cool. To him, she was just another waitress, and that was just fine with her. When the meal was over, Patrick thanked her, his demeanor as kind as it was calm. Emma handed him the check and turned back to her duties, trying to focus on anything but the lingering excitement of serving someone so famous. It wasn't until she returned to collect the check that her world shifted entirely. Emma approached Patrick's table to clear the plates and retrieve the check. The diner had quieted down after the lunch rush, leaving her with a moment to breathe. As she reached for the check, her eyes caught sight of something unusual, a note scribbled in Patrick's handwriting on the back of the receipt. At first, she hesitated, unsure if it was meant for her or just a casual doodle. Curiosity got the better of her, and she turned the paper over. The note read, "Thank you for your kindness and hard work. I know how much these jobs can take out of you. You're doing amazing, and someone out there is very lucky to have you in their life." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The simplicity of the words hit her harder than she expected, but what truly left her stunned was the figure written below the note, a tip of $10,000. She blinked several times, convinced she must be seeing things. Her hands trembled as she clutched the check, trying to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. People didn't just leave tips like that. "Is everything okay?" a voice behind her asked. She turned to see Patrick standing there, his expression genuine and warm. He had waited by the counter instead of slipping out unnoticed. Emma struggled to find her voice. I don't know what to say," she finally managed. "This can't be right." "It's right," Patrick said, his tone steady but kind. "I've been blessed in ways I can't even describe. I just wanted to share a little of that with you. You deserve it." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. She thought of her son, of the overdue rent, of the endless nights she spent worrying about how to make ends meet. This single act of kindness felt like a lifeline. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You have no idea what this means to me." Patrick smiled, a humble shrug accompanying his words. "I think I do. Take care of yourself. And whoever's lucky enough to call you family." As he walked out the door, Emma stood frozen, overwhelmed by the moment. Around her, the diner seemed to fade away, leaving only the weight of the check and the enormity of what had just happened. Tears streamed down her face, a mixture of gratitude, relief, and disbelief. She clutched the note to her chest, whispering a silent promise to make the most of this unexpected gift. Emma sat at her small kitchen table that evening, the note and check laid carefully in front of her as though they were fragile treasures. The weight of what had happened pressed on her, not in an overwhelming way, but as a quiet, persistent reminder of how profoundly her life had just shifted. Across the room, her 6-year-old son, Caleb, played with a toy truck, blissfully unaware of his mother's emotional whirlwind. Her mind raced with possibilities. She thought about the overdue bills piled on the counter, the constant worry about keeping the electricity on, and the worn-out shoes she'd been meaning to replace for Caleb. But beyond the financial strain, there was the deeper exhaustion of balancing 2 jobs while trying to be a present and supportive mother. The tip was more than just money. It was a lifeline, a second chance to breathe. As the hours passed, Emma struggled with a mix of gratitude and guilt. Why me? She wondered. The gesture felt too grand, too generous for someone who had done nothing more than serve a meal with a smile. And yet, Patrick Mahomes' note echoed in her mind. You're doing amazing, and someone out there is very lucky to have you in their life. She realized that his words weren't about the work she had done that day. They were about the unseen effort she put into her life every day. Later that night, as Caleb was getting ready for bed, he noticed the faraway look in his mother's eyes. Are you okay, Mommy? He asked, his small hand reaching for hers. Emma pulled him into a hug, tears brimming in her eyes. I'm more than okay, sweetheart. Things are going to get better, I promise. The next morning, she made a decision. Instead of using the money to simply patch up her life temporarily, she would use it to build something lasting for her and Caleb. She began by reaching out to her landlord to settle the overdue rent and secure their home. Then, she drafted a list of goals: saving for Caleb's education, taking a certification course to advance her career, and setting aside an emergency fund. The plan gave her a sense of control and hope, 2 things she hadn't felt in years. Emma couldn't help but think of Patrick Mahomes and the profound impact of his simple yet extraordinary gesture. She resolved to write him a letter, not just to thank him, but to let him know how his kindness had transformed her life. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like the future wasn't just something to fear. It was something to look forward to. The following week marked the start of a new chapter in Emma's life. With the $10,000 tip safely deposited in her bank account, she began to set her plans into motion. The first priority was securing stability for Caleb. She paid the overdue rent and arranged a meeting with her landlord, ensuring their small apartment would remain their home. The relief of knowing they wouldn't face eviction lifted a burden that had weighed on her for months. Emma also signed up for a certification course in business administration, a step she had long dreamed of but never believed she could afford. The local community college offered evening classes that fit perfectly around her shifts at the diner. While the prospect of juggling school and work was daunting, Emma was fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. She wanted more for Caleb, not just financial stability, but the example of resilience and determination. At the diner, Emma's coworkers noticed the change in her. There was a lightness in her step, a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Her friend and fellow waitress, Maria, finally confronted her during a break. All right, spill it, Maria said with a teasing grin. You've been glowing all week. What happened? Emma hesitated, unsure if she should share her story. But as Maria's curiosity grew, she decided to open up. You remember that man who came in last week, the one sitting in the corner booth? Emma began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. That was Patrick Mahomes. He left me a $10,000 tip and a note that changed everything. Maria's jaw dropped, her eyes wide. Wait, Patrick Mahomes? The quarterback? Are you serious? Emma nodded, and Maria let out a low whistle. Girl, that's unbelievable. What did you do? Emma explained how she had used the money to catch up on bills, enroll in school, and start planning for Caleb's future. Maria listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to admiration. You deserve this, Emma, she said finally. You've been working so hard, and it's about time something good came your way. Despite the progress Emma was making, challenges still arose. Balancing her shifts at the diner, evening classes, and parenting Caleb required every ounce of energy she had. There were nights when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, but the memory of Patrick's kindness and the promise she had made to herself kept her moving forward. One evening, after putting Caleb to bed, Emma sat down at her kitchen table with her class materials spread out before her. She glanced at the framed photo of her and Caleb on the counter, a reminder of why she was doing this. As she worked through her assignments, a quiet determination settled over her. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about building a life they could both be proud of. Emma's days became a balancing act as she juggled her shifts at the diner, evening classes, and time with Caleb. While her schedule was grueling, she found comfort in the structure and purpose it gave her life. The small victories, like acing a quiz in her class or hearing Caleb laugh as they played together, were enough to keep her going. But life had a way of testing her resolve, and new challenges soon emerged. One particularly busy morning at the diner, Emma was rushing between tables when her manager pulled her aside. "Emma, I need to talk to you," he said, his expression unreadable. Her heart sank as she braced for bad news. "We're cutting back hours next month," he continued. "It's out of my hands, but I wanted to give you a heads up." The news hit Emma like a punch to the gut. Losing hours meant losing income, a setback she hadn't anticipated. As her manager walked away, she stood frozen, her mind racing. She couldn't afford to let this derail her plans, but the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on her shoulders. That evening, Emma tried to stay positive as she helped Caleb with his homework. But when he innocently asked if they could go to the park over the weekend, she found herself holding back tears. "Maybe next weekend, sweetie," she said softly, her voice strained. Caleb nodded, his cheerful demeanor unshaken, but Emma felt a pang of guilt. She didn't want him to feel the strain of their situation, even if it was temporary. Determined not to let the cut hours define her progress, Emma began exploring other options. She reached out to her classmates, inquiring about part-time opportunities that could fit her schedule. One of them, a single mother named Danielle, suggested a flexible data entry job she had taken on the side. "It's not glamorous, but it's something," Danielle said. "And it's remote, so you can do it from home after Caleb's asleep." Emma jumped at the opportunity. While the job wasn't ideal, it provided a much-needed cushion. The additional income, though modest, eased her immediate worries and allowed her to stay on track with her goals. It was a reminder that resilience wasn't about avoiding challenges. It was about finding ways to adapt and push through them. On the first night of her new job, Emma worked late into the evening after finishing her homework. Exhaustion loomed, but so did a sense of accomplishment. She thought about Patrick's note again. "You're doing amazing, and someone out there is very lucky to have you in their life." The words had become a mantra, a beacon guiding her through the darkest moments. As Emma closed her laptop and prepared for bed, she glanced at Caleb sleeping soundly in his room. The sight filled her with a quiet determination. Life wasn't perfect, but it was moving forward, and so was she. Weeks turned into months, and despite the setbacks, Emma's persistence began to pay off. The certification course in business administration was nearing its final phase, and she had impressed her instructors with her dedication and sharp instincts. Her newfound confidence began to spill over into her work at the diner and her remote data entry job. Slowly but surely, the pieces of her life were falling into place. One evening, after a particularly long day, Emma received an email from her course advisor. The subject line read, "Exciting opportunity. Apply now." Curious, she opened it to find an invitation to apply for a paid internship with a local nonprofit organization. The internship, focused on administrative management, seemed like the perfect opportunity to gain hands-on experience and transition into a career aligned with her goals. The only problem was that it required a full-time commitment, meaning she would have to leave her job at the diner. The decision weighed heavily on her. The diner had been her lifeline for years, a place of familiarity and routine. Leaving it felt like stepping into uncharted territory. That night, as she lay in bed, Emma thought about Caleb. She imagined giving him a life where she could attend all his school events, afford better opportunities for him, and spend more quality time together. The internship wasn't just about her. It was about building a better future for both of them. With a deep breath, Emma decided to take the leap. She spent the weekend polishing her resume and preparing for the interview, her nerves a mix of excitement and anxiety. On the day of the interview, she wore her best outfit, a modest blouse and slacks she had bought with the tip money. As she waited outside the office, her hands trembled slightly, but she reminded herself of how far she'd come. The interview was both challenging and inspiring. The panel asked her about her experience, her aspirations, and what motivated her to apply. Emma spoke from the heart, sharing her journey and the pivotal moment when a stranger's kindness had changed her life. "I want to be part of something meaningful," she said, her voice steady. "I want to help others the way I've been helped." Days later, Emma received the news she had been hoping for. She got the internship. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she hugged Caleb tightly, unable to contain her excitement. "What's wrong, Mommy?" he asked, giggling at her tears. "Nothing, sweetheart," she said, smiling through the tears. "Everything's finally right." Emma's decision to leave the diner wasn't easy, but her coworkers supported her wholeheartedly. On her last day, Maria hugged her tightly. "You're going to do amazing things, Emma," she said. "Don't ever forget how strong you are." As Emma walked out of the diner for the last time, she felt a mix of sadness and anticipation. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready to embrace the opportunities that lay ahead, knowing that every step she took was a step closer to the life she had dreamed of for herself and Caleb. Emma's first day at the nonprofit organization was a whirlwind of introductions, orientation sessions, and learning the ropes of her new role. The office, bustling with activity, was unlike any environment she'd worked in before. Her supervisor, Rachel, was a sharp and compassionate leader who welcomed Emma warmly. "We're thrilled to have you here," Rachel said with a smile. "Your story and drive make you the perfect fit for this team." The work was challenging but fulfilling. Emma was tasked with organizing community outreach programs, managing schedules, and assisting in fundraising efforts. It was a steep learning curve, but she embraced every task with determination. Each day brought new responsibilities, and with them, a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a job, it was a chance to make a real impact. Adjusting to her new routine wasn't without its hurdles. Balancing the internship with parenting still required careful planning. Caleb, ever resilient, adjusted quickly, excitedly telling his friends that his mom worked in a fancy office helping people. His pride gave Emma the motivation to keep pushing forward, even on the days when exhaustion threatened to overtake her. One afternoon, while reviewing proposals for an upcoming community project, Rachel stopped by Emma's desk. "How's everything going?" she asked, her tone genuinely curious. Emma looked up with a smile. "It's a lot to learn, but I'm loving every minute of it." Rachel nodded, then hesitated. "I've been meaning to tell you. I read your application essay. Your story is incredible, Emma. It's a testament to resilience and kindness. Have you ever thought about sharing it more broadly?" Emma froze for a moment, unsure how to respond. The idea of sharing her personal journey publicly felt both empowering and intimidating. "I've never really thought about it," she admitted. "Why?" Rachel leaned against the desk, her expression thoughtful. "We're launching a campaign to inspire others to support our work. Your story could be exactly what we need to show people the impact of community support and the importance of paying it forward." The idea lingered in Emma's mind for days. Part of her feared exposing her vulnerabilities to a larger audience, but another part of her felt compelled to give back. She thought about Patrick Mahomes' note and how his kindness had set this entire journey in motion. If sharing her story could inspire even one person to help someone in need, it would be worth it. By the end of the week, Emma approached Rachel with her decision. "I'm in," she said confidently. "If sharing my story can make a difference, I'm happy to do it." Rachel beamed. "That's wonderful, Emma. I'll set up a meeting with our communications team to get started." As Emma left the office that day, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The internship wasn't just helping her build a better life. It was giving her the chance to be part of something bigger. And for the first time, she began to see herself not just as someone who had been helped, but as someone who could help others. A few weeks later, Emma found herself sitting in a brightly lit conference room, her nerves fluttering as the communications team set up their cameras and microphones. It was the first time she had ever been asked to speak publicly about her life. Rachel sat beside her, offering words of encouragement. "Just be yourself, Emma," she said. "Your story doesn't need embellishment. It's powerful because it's real. The campaign team guided Emma through the process. They asked her to recount her journey, the struggles of balancing work and parenting, the moment Patrick Mahomes changed her life, and how she turned that generosity into an opportunity to rebuild. As Emma spoke, the initial nervousness faded, replaced by a genuine desire to connect with others. She described how the $10,000 tip had been more than financial aid. It had been a symbol of faith in her abilities, something she hadn't felt in years. "I think the most important thing I've learned," Emma said, her voice steady, "is that kindness isn't just about what you give, it's about how you make someone feel. Patrick reminded me that I was worth investing in, and because of that, I've been able to invest in myself and my son. Now, I want to pay that forward." The team wrapped up the interview with smiles and handshakes, assuring Emma that her words would inspire many. Over the next few weeks, the nonprofit launched the campaign across social media and local news outlets. Emma's story became a beacon of hope, drawing attention to the power of small acts of kindness and the importance of supporting community-driven initiatives. As the campaign gained traction, Emma began receiving messages from strangers. Some thanked her for sharing her journey, while others shared their own stories of struggle and resilience. One message in particular stood out: a single mother named Lisa, who was on the verge of losing her home. "Your story reminded me that it's okay to ask for help," Lisa wrote. "I reached out to a local shelter today, and they're helping me get back on my feet. Thank you for giving me hope." Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she read the message. For so long, she had felt like her struggles were hers alone. Now, she realized how interconnected people's lives could be. Her vulnerability had opened a door for others to seek help, creating a ripple effect of compassion and support. The campaign's success also brought new opportunities for Emma. Local businesses and donors, inspired by her story, reached out to the nonprofit with offers to collaborate. Rachel, ever the visionary, began brainstorming ways to expand their programs, and Emma found herself at the center of these conversations. Her insight and experience made her an invaluable part of the team. One evening, as Emma walked home with Caleb, he looked up at her with wide eyes. "Mommy, why do people keep saying you're a hero?" he asked. Emma laughed softly, holding his hand a little tighter. "I'm not a hero, sweetheart. I'm just someone who got a little help and decided to share it." Caleb tilted his head thoughtfully. "Well, I think you're a hero." Emma smiled, her eyes misty as she kissed the top of his head. "Thank you, baby. But you know what? You're my hero." As they reached their apartment, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for Patrick Mahomes' kindness, but for the strength she had discovered within herself. She had come so far, and she knew this was just the beginning. As the weeks passed, Emma's life transformed in ways she had never imagined. The success of the nonprofit's campaign propelled her into a more prominent role within the organization. Rachel, impressed by Emma's natural ability to connect with people, offered her a position as a community outreach coordinator. The promotion came with a salary increase, flexible hours, and the chance to make a tangible difference in people's lives. Accepting the role was a bittersweet moment for Emma. It marked the official end of her chapter at the diner, a place that had been her lifeline for so many years. Yet, stepping into this new position felt like stepping into her potential. On her first day as a coordinator, Emma was tasked with organizing a community event aimed at providing resources for low-income families. The event included free workshops, job fairs, and a food drive, all designed to uplift the community. Emma threw herself into the planning, leveraging her experiences to ensure the event was as impactful as possible. She worked closely with local businesses and volunteers, drawing on her newfound confidence to secure donations and support. Despite the workload, Emma thrived. The sense of purpose she felt made every late night and early morning worth it. However, her new role also came with challenges. Some of her co-workers, who had been with the nonprofit longer, questioned why Emma was given such responsibility so quickly. Their skepticism often played out in subtle ways: missed invitations to meetings, curt responses to her ideas, and an underlying tension in team discussions. While Rachel reassured Emma that she was doing an excellent job, the doubts of her peers began to wear on her. One evening, after a particularly tense meeting, Emma confided in Rachel. I feel like I don't belong here sometimes, she admitted. Like I haven't earned my place. Rachel leaned forward, her expression firm but compassionate. Emma, let me tell you something. You're here because you've proven your worth, not just to me, but to this entire organization. People will always have opinions, but you can't let them define you. Focus on what you're building, not on the noise. Bolstered by Rachel's encouragement, Emma resolved to rise above the doubts and focus on her mission. The day of the community event arrived, and the turnout exceeded all expectations. Families lined up for resources, children played in the activity zones, and job seekers eagerly attended workshops. Emma moved through the crowd, ensuring everything ran smoothly, her heart swelling with pride at the impact they were making. Toward the end of the event, a woman approached Emma with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for this," she said, clutching a bag of groceries. "I didn't know how I was going to feed my kids this week. You've given us hope." Emma's throat tightened with emotion as she hugged the woman. In that moment, the doubts and challenges faded away. She wasn't just doing a job. She was making a difference. As she packed up after the event, Caleb ran up to her, holding a handmade card he had created at the activity table. On the front, he had drawn a big heart with the words, "Best mom ever." Inside, he had written, "You help everyone, Mommy. I love you." Emma held the card close, tears slipping down her cheeks. She realized that her journey wasn't just about overcoming her struggles. It was about showing Caleb and the world the power of resilience and kindness. Emma's role as a community outreach coordinator grew more demanding as the nonprofit expanded its reach. With every new program and partnership came new challenges. While she had grown more confident in her abilities, the weight of responsibility began to take its toll. Balancing her work with being a mother and managing her personal goals left her physically and emotionally drained. One afternoon, Rachel called Emma into her office. "We've been invited to apply for a significant grant," Rachel explained, handing Emma a folder filled with application details. "If we get it, we can fund several new initiatives, including a permanent food pantry. I want you to lead this effort." Emma's heart raced. The grant was a tremendous opportunity, but it also came with immense pressure. As she reviewed the application requirements, the magnitude of the task became clear. The proposal required extensive data, detailed program outlines, and evidence of community impact, all within a tight deadline. Still, Emma couldn't bring herself to say no. "I'll do it," she said, determination lacing her voice. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emma pored over reports, gathered testimonials, and coordinated with various departments to assemble the grant proposal. Late nights at her kitchen table became the norm, her only companions the soft glow of her laptop and Caleb's quiet breathing from his bedroom. Despite her exhaustion, she reminded herself of the potential impact, a pantry that could feed hundreds of families in need. As the deadline approached, unexpected obstacles arose. A critical report was delayed, and a key collaborator fell ill, leaving Emma to pick up the slack. Frustration simmered beneath her calm exterior, but she refused to let it show. Instead, she pushed harder, working through her exhaustion with a tenacity that surprised even herself. One night, as she sat staring at her screen, the words on the page began to blur. Caleb, sensing her weariness, placed a cup of water on the table beside her. "You're doing great, Mommy," he said with a sleepy smile. His simple gesture reignited her determination. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart. I'm doing this for us, and for everyone who needs it." On the final day, Emma submitted the proposal just minutes before the deadline. The weight of the past 2 weeks lifted slightly, replaced by a nervous anticipation. All she could do now was wait. A month later, Rachel gathered the team for an announcement. "I'm thrilled to share that we've been awarded the grant," she said, her excitement evident. The room erupted in applause, but Emma sat frozen, her mind replaying the countless hours she had poured into the proposal. Tears welled in her eyes as the realization sank in. Her efforts had made this possible. Rachel approached Emma after the meeting. "You did this," she said. "Your dedication and hard work made all the difference." Emma smiled through her tears. "I couldn't have done it without the team, and without everything that brought me here." That evening, as Emma and Caleb celebrated with a simple dinner at home, she reflected on how far they had come. The struggles she had faced were now the foundation of her strength, and every challenge had led her to this moment. As Caleb fell asleep, clutching his handmade Best Mom Ever card, Emma whispered a quiet promise to herself to continue using her journey to inspire and uplift others. Emma's success with the grant earned her respect and recognition within the nonprofit, but it also brought new responsibilities. She was now overseeing the implementation of the funded programs, including the creation of a permanent food pantry. The project was ambitious, and while Emma was excited about the impact it would have, the workload quickly became overwhelming. One afternoon, as Emma worked through a mountain of logistics, Rachel called her into the office. "I have some news," Rachel began, her tone serious. "There's been a hiccup with one of our major partnerships. They're pulling back on their commitment due to financial constraints. It's going to leave a gap in the pantry's budget." Emma felt her stomach drop. The partnership was crucial to the pantry's operations, and without it, the program's sustainability was at risk. "What are our options?" she asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Rachel sighed. "We'll need to find alternative funding quickly or scale back the project. I know this is a lot to ask, but I need your help to navigate this." Determined not to let the setback derail their progress, Emma sprang into action. She reached out to local businesses, community leaders, and even some of the donors inspired by her story during the campaign. She shared the pantry's vision, emphasizing the critical role it would play in addressing food insecurity in the community. Her passion and authenticity resonated with many, and small contributions began to trickle in. However, the pressure weighed heavily on Emma. Late one evening, as she reviewed budgets and funding proposals, doubt crept into her mind. She wondered if she had taken on too much, if she was in over her head. Caleb, sensing her tension, brought her his favorite stuffed animal. "You can borrow Mr. Bear," he said, his voice soft. "He helps me feel brave." Emma hugged him tightly, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, sweetheart. I think Mr. Bear and I can do this together." The next day, Emma attended a community town hall meeting to present the pantry project and rally support. Public speaking had never been her strength, but as she stood before the audience, she thought about all the families who would benefit from the pantry. She spoke from the heart, sharing her journey and the impact the pantry could have on the community. By the end of her presentation, several attendees approached her with pledges of support, including a local grocery store owner who offered regular donations of surplus food. Over the next few weeks, Emma's efforts paid off. The pantry's funding gap was closed, and the project moved forward as planned. On opening day, the community came together to celebrate the milestone. Families lined up to receive food, and volunteers worked tirelessly to ensure everyone was served with dignity and kindness. As Emma stood outside the pantry, watching the bustling activity, Rachel joined her. "You've done something incredible here, Emma," Rachel said. "This pantry wouldn't exist without your leadership and determination." Emma smiled, a mix of pride and humility washing over her. "It wasn't just me," she replied. "It was everyone who believed in this and in each other." That evening, as Emma and Caleb walked home, he looked up at her with admiration. "Mommy, you're like a superhero," he said, his voice full of awe. Emma laughed, holding his hand tightly. "Not a superhero, Caleb. Just someone who believes we can all make a difference." The weeks following the food pantry's grand opening were some of the busiest and most fulfilling of Emma's life. The pantry quickly became a vital resource for the community, serving families, seniors, and individuals who had struggled with food insecurity for years. Emma worked tirelessly to ensure its success, coordinating volunteers, managing donations, and building relationships with local businesses. But as the pantry grew, so did the sense of purpose that had carried her through the most challenging moments of her journey. One afternoon, as Emma organized a shipment of fresh produce, she overheard a volunteer talking to a family in line. "This place is a blessing," the woman said, her voice filled with emotion. "I don't know what we'd do without it." Emma's chest tightened with gratitude. These moments reminded her why she had fought so hard to make the pantry a reality. It wasn't just about providing food, It was about restoring dignity and hope to people who needed it most. Caleb often joined Emma at the pantry, helping to stock shelves and greet visitors. One day, as he handed out bags of groceries, he beamed with pride. "Mommy, I like helping people," he said, his small voice full of sincerity. Emma knelt beside him, her eyes misty. "That's the most important thing we can do, sweetheart. Help each other." As the months passed, Emma's story continued to inspire others. The nonprofit's campaign featuring her journey reached new audiences, leading to additional support for their programs. Emma was invited to speak at events, sharing how one act of kindness had transformed her life. Though public speaking still made her nervous, she embraced the opportunity to give back. Each time she stepped onto a stage, she thought of Patrick Mahomes' note and how it had set everything in motion. One day, Emma received an invitation that took her by surprise, a charity gala where Patrick Mahomes would be the guest of honor. The nonprofit had been asked to attend and share their work, and Rachel insisted that Emma come along as their representative. "You're the heart of this story, Emma," Rachel said. "You need to be there." The night of the gala, Emma wore a simple yet elegant dress, a far cry from her diner uniform. She felt a mix of excitement and nerves as she entered the grand ballroom, the sound of music and laughter filling the air. When she finally spotted Patrick across the room, she hesitated for a moment before walking over. Patrick greeted her with a warm smile, immediately recognizing her. "Emma," he said, extending his hand. "It's great to see you again." Emma shook his hand, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "I've been wanting to thank you in person," she said. "What you did for me, it changed everything. And not just for me, for my son, for our community. I'll never forget it." Patrick's smile deepened. "You didn't just take the opportunity, you built something amazing out of it. That's all you." As the night went on, Emma shared updates about the pantry and the lives it had touched. Patrick listened intently, his expression one of genuine pride. Before they parted ways, he handed her a small envelope. "A little something to keep things growing," he said with a wink. Later, Emma opened the envelope to find a check for another donation, this time to support the pantry's expansion. Tears filled her eyes as she thought about how far she had come, how far they all had come. She knew this wasn't the end of her journey. It was just the beginning. That night, as Emma tucked Caleb into bed, he looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Are we going to help more people, Mommy?" Emma smiled, stroking his hair. "Yes, baby. We're going to help as many as we can." As she turned off the light and sat by the window, gazing at the stars, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought her here. What had started as a simple note on a check had grown into a legacy of kindness, resilience, and hope. And she knew that as long as she kept moving forward, the ripple effect of that kindness would continue to touch lives far beyond her own. If you made it this far, comment where you're watching from and let us know if the story of justice moved you.